Om Sadashivasamārambhām Shankarācārya-madhyamām Asmadācārya-paryantām Vande Guru-paramparam Asmadgurubhyo namaha. Shruti-smriti-purāṇānām ālayam karuṇālayam Namāmi Bhagavad-pādam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankarācāryam Kesavam Bādarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Om Shri Medha Dakshina Murti Swamine Namaha Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Om Partaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavatam Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshiniim Bhagavatim Ashtadashaadhyayiniim Ambatvāmanusandhadāmi Bhagavad Gite Bhavadveshiniim Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutah Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedais Sankapadakramopanishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasam Pashyanti Yam Yoginah Yasyantanna Vidhusura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Namaste once again, everyone.
Namaste Guruji.
Namaste Guruji.
Namaste
Pranam.
Guruji.
Namaste, Namaste.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. So we are seeing the 38th shloka. Dhume navriyate vannihi yatadarsho malena cha yatolbenavruto garbah tathat tenedamavritam. But we are just, I think last class I just chanted the shloka, or even probably I didn't do that. Okay. Just started on the 38th shloka. So Anvaya of this shloka is Idam Avritam Tena Tata Yatha Vannihi Avriyate Dhumena Adarshaha Malena Cha Yatha Garbhaha Avritaha Ulbena. So the word meanings are Idam Avritam. This knowledge, this here knowledge means the Viveka Shakti, the discriminative power, the discriminative faculty of the Buddhi. This Idam Avritam means it is covered. Tena, by that. That means what? By desire. Because in the previous sloka he has talked about Kama, Krodha and all that. So he is continuing that. Tatha Yatha. In such a way as Vannihi Avriyate, the fire is enveloped. Dhumena, by smoke. Adarshaha, a mirror, is Malenacha, covered by dust. Yatha, just as Garbha Avritaha, the fetus is enveloped Ulbena, by the womb. So this knowledge, this discriminative power is covered by that desire, Kama, in such a way as the fire is enveloped by the smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, and as the fetus is enveloped by the womb. So in the previous sloka, Krishna said Kama and Krodha are your enemies. We must understand, and of course we discussed that also, Kama and Krodha are not two separate things. They are two sides of the same coin. Kama is what leads to Krodha. Therefore, if you learn to handle kama, desires, you need not separately handle krodha. Because kama alone gets converted into krodha. Therefore, Krishna does not discuss the problem of anger. He wants to discuss the problem of desire only, because if you handle desire, anger is automatically handled. Therefore, after stating that kama and krodha are the worst enemies, Krishna now starts teaching how to handle them. Now, how does desire cause problem for the human being? We have to analyze that first. It's just like, analyzing any disease, like diabetes, for example. We know diabetes, it's a disease in which the pancreas doesn't produce enough insulin to function properly, or the body cells are unable to absorb the insulin. How does this particular disease affect the person? Because of insufficient insulin secretion or insufficient absorption, the system is not able to metabolize the sugar to convert them into energy for the body. Therefore, a high level of sugar remains in the blood. And this could affect the functioning of the various organs like eyes, kidneys, muscles, etc. Therefore, if we want to know how to handle diabetes, we have to first understand how it works. Otherwise, we cannot deal with it, isn't it? Similarly, to deal with desire, we should know how does it cause the problem. Krishna says, desire causes the problem by blunting your discriminative power, your reasoning power, your thinking power. So, a person who is obsessed with a desire cannot think. And that is why, we use, expressions like blinded by desire, etc. In English language, we use it was blinded by desire. And Viveka Shakti, the discriminative power, is like a charioteer, the one who drives the chariot, the driver, who guides your entire life. In fact, in Kathopanishad, there is a beautiful mantra which is called Rathakalpana. There, the body is compared to a chariot in which buddhi or discriminative power is said to be the driver of the vehicle. Just as the driver alone decides which way the chariot should go, the buddhi driver alone has to decide what should be my way of life, in which direction I should take my life. This is the function of the intellect of the buddhi. Therefore, every moment I should know whether I should give importance to spirituality or whether I should give importance to materialism. Mind you, materialism is not bad. Shastra doesn't condemn materialism. But you have to take a decision guided by your Vivek Shakti. Prioritize in your life at what stage materialism is important, at what stage spirituality becomes important. So between the two, what is more important, and that too at what stage? So that means that I should have the discriminative power to know the relative priorities in life. Every movement is a movement of decision. For example, There is a job which has got a lot of money, but the risk is very high. I mean, you are probably required to do a lot of adharmic things so that if you get caught, you will go to jail and all that. But a lot of money is there. But there is another job where the risk is low, but the money is also low. Now you have to choose. You have to choose between money and risk. Low risk, low money. High risk, high money. And such or similar choices are presented to us every day in our life. Every moment there is some choice that we have to make. Life presents us with lots of choices and we have to choose. Therefore, when we have to make a choice, what does this karma do? This karma interferes in the process of choice making and it blunts or covers the Viveka Shakti. Tena idam avritam. That's what Krishna says. In fact, he said, Tena kamena idam. Idam means jnanam. Jnanam here, as I said, means Viveka Shakti. Is avritam, covered, clouded, veiled. And how does this discriminative power covered? How do we understand that? Krishna gives 3 examples. The first example, the smoke covering the flame or a fire. Yata dhumena vannihi avriyate. Just as fire is enveloped by smoke. What is the relevance of this example? Vanni means agnihi, fire. Fire has got brightness. It can illumine the places around. It has got enlightening power. But when it is covered by thick smoke, it is not able to do what it has to do. It cannot illumine the place. In fact, when we drive through a thick fog, even with full headlights on in the car, we can experience full light is there, high beam, but we can't see beyond a few feet because of the thick, fog. Similarly, the smoke, that's the same thing to fire. So in this example, the smoke is compared to the desires and fire is compared to the discriminative power, Viveka Shakti. This is example number 1. The second example is Adarshaha Malenacha. Adarshaha means a mirror. We see our face and all, And here Malam means dust. Now, Malam has got different meanings, different contexts. Here the meaning is dust. Therefore, just as the mirror being covered by dust, what will happen? Mirror cannot do what it has to do. It has to clearly show our face when we are looking at the mirror. It has to reflect all the objects which the mirror is able to see. But it cannot do that when the mirror is covered by dust, heavy dust. This is the second example he gives. Third example is Yatha Garbha Ulbena Avritaha. Garbha means fetus, a child, unborn child. Child in the womb is called Garbha. And Ulbam means womb. So just as the child is covered by the womb, which means the child is not able to do anything, it does not have the power to function. It has to just sit like that, that's all. So a child in the womb is non-functional. At least we can say not fully functional, because at a later stage and all, it seems it can actually move its legs and all that, the mother to be will feel those, what is that, leg movements, she can experience that. But at least by and large, the child cannot function rather. And mainly because it doesn't have enough space to function. It's in a very small space in the womb. So this is the third example. Therefore, covered by smoke, fire cannot do what it has to do. Covered by dust, the mirror cannot do what it has to do. Covered by the womb, a child cannot do anything. In the same way, covered by desire, the buddhi cannot do what it has to do. Thinking power is lost. The discriminative power is lost. So, tathatena idam avritam. Now, these three examples have got significance also. It is not just Krishna is giving examples. We can also give so many examples. But what are these three examples? Why he quotes them? There is a significance. Because this covering or this discriminative power getting weird can have different degrees of covering rather, right? When the smoke is covering the flame, it is easier to remove that smoke. You have to only just fan a little bit, the smoke will disappear. In fact, when we perform homam and all at home, we often experience this, after giving some ahutis and all that, when we are chanting some other mantras, the fire it will start giving smoke, and the smoke will envelop the fire. But then we take a fan or something, hand fan, and we or the priest will actually drive away the smoke. It is easy to do that. But when the mirror is covered by dust, it is not that you take a cloth and wipe the dust away. But if the dust has been there for a very long time, somebody has unmuted. Please mute yourself. Getting disturbed. So if the dust has settled down on the mirror for a long time, sometimes you may have to use some wet cloth, some soap solution, etc. to remove the dust. And if the dust is very hard, it may require some solid rubbing also. It may be a bit difficult, but not impossible. And if the child is covered by the womb, you cannot do anything except wait, isn't it? You cannot pull the child out of the womb whenever you want. Of course, these days doctors do monitor the child's growth and all that, and at some stage they decide that if the child remains in the womb for a longer time, then it is danger for both the child and the mother, so they perform the cesarean section and all that, right? But for that also, the child has to become mature for taking birth. Normally, natural time is about 9 to 10 months. And then alone, it will grow out of the womb. So these three examples are given to highlight that the desires are also of three types. Those desires which can be easily eliminated by Viveka Shakti. So if it is a milder variety, sheer discrimination is enough. But if it is slightly more intense, the Viveka Shakti will not work. One has to go through the process of fulfillment of those desires and face the consequences. You are not able to control. That's called binding desires. At any cost, I have to have it. You will have to go through the experiences and the sufferings you will face trying to fulfill the desire, and then perhaps the wisdom will dawn. That's what we do throughout our life. And when we reach a senior citizen stage, we realize all these things. And if a person's desire is so intense, very strong, you can never talk about the evil of desires to him. You cannot tell him, oh, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has said desire and all is, you must be able to overcome the negative effects of desire and all that. You can't talk to him. He will start arguing Krishna also had desires. So what we have to do? Nothing. Just allow that person to remain the way he is and hope that one day he will grow out of that, like the womb, the child in the womb. So this is the significance of these three examples which Krishna gives. Similarly, in our cases also, one has to go through brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, etc. You can't do anything rather. There are some people who are born, because again, vasanas carrying forward from the previous births, etc. They don't have desire. Now, mostly people, when they reach a particular age, there is a keen desire to get married. But we have seen many people, they have no such desire for marriage. So, again, all this is determined by your vasanas rather. But then, if you understand all these things, if you study the Bhagavad Gita and understand what role desires play in our life and what are the pluses and minuses, the pros and cons of these desires, then even if the vasanas generate those desires, we can apply our discriminative power in order to manage those desires. Because all these vasanas, they have come to us through so many janmas, several janmas. But we don't know whether this janma may be the starting point when we can start growing out of it. Therefore, it is not that one should not have desires, one should know how to handle it properly. As we saw in the last class, Duryodhana had the same problem. In spite of Shastric knowledge, in spite of knowing what is Dharma, he himself says, I know what is Dharma, but I am helpless because it appears that something from inside me is pushing me to do adharma. So it is not the question of not having knowledge. But we discussed that at length in the last class. Ravana had the same problem. In spite of he being a great Shiva Bhakta, a great Vedic scholar, a great Samaveda singer, who pleased Lord Shiva himself. And Lord Shiva himself appeared and blessed Ravana. Such a decent, well-educated person had a clouded discriminative power to such an extent that in spite of the advice of so many people, he did not listen. So it is not that the intelligence is lacking, but the intelligence is temporarily clouded, as Krishna had said in the second chapter, Sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho bijayate. He had traced this, Second chapter we saw this mantra. Then he said in the next sloka, Krodhat bhavati sammoha. So kama leads to krodha, krodha leads to sammoha, means delusion. Sammohat smriti vibhramaha. Smriti bhramshat buddhi nashaha. Buddhi nashat pranashyati. Exactly tracing what happened to Ravana. Eventually, pranashyati, he is destroyed. Why? Kama. Starting point was kama, desire. Desire for Sita. Desire for a beautiful woman like Sita. So when we read these Itihasa, Ramayana, Mahabharata and all, when we study them, we must actually focus not on the entertainment aspect of all these stories, but the messages that is being conveyed by these stories. Ravana is an excellent character to study. The 10 heads of Ravana, what it represents. What, despite being a very, accomplished scholar, how this desire can lead to destruction of that person. And the process in that 62nd sloka of the second chapter, Bhagavan Krishna very beautifully has explained. You must understand that. Whenever some strong desire comes in our mind, what we should do, we should sit back and analyze. This desire has come. Now, what should I do about it? So many questions we have to frame in our mind. We have to answer those questions. That is what is the purpose of the discriminative power, the Viveka Shakti. Analyze everything, find out the pros and cons, and then do whatever is to be done. If you find that the desire is something like doom and this fire engulfed by the smoke, then even if there is a little bit of smoke, you can tolerate it. You can, okay, let me go ahead and fulfill that desire. So, coming of desire, as I said in the last class, that thought which comes, you can't avoid. Like Krishna said earlier also, that's all Prakriti Jai Gunai. Because of the guna of a person carried forward and determined by the samskaras, vasanas, that first thought will occur in the mind on which we have no control. But the second thought, third thought, we have control. So, this sammoha, in the second chapter which Krishna explained, is what is actually elaborated in this verse 38 as covering the discriminative power. The delusion covers the discriminative power. What is sammoha in the second chapter? Krishna answers in the third chapter, 38th verse, and gives 3 examples. And when the discriminative power is made defunct, is made non-functional temporarily, a person, more often than not, what he does is continuous adharma. And that's why, in daily Sandhya Vandanam, there is one mantra. We say, Kamo Karshit, Manyura Karshit, Namo Namaha. Kama did it, O Lord. Because of Kama, because of Krodha, I violated decency, dharma. Because of Krodha, I did it. Therefore, we worship Kama and Krodha because we know that there are a pair of, terrorists, pair of terrorists, gundas. That's why, in our Puranas and all these villains will be in pairs. Madhu Kaidaba, Shumba Nishumba, Ravana Kumbhakarna, Shishupala Dantavakra, Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha. They all come in pairs. They all symbolize Kama Krodha. In fact, of course, they are characters in the Puranas, but they are actually every day with us only. They are within me in my head as Ravana, Shishupala, etc. And that's why, even during the annual Upakarma, this Avaniya Vittam, we do what? Kamokarshi Japam, first ritual we perform on that day is Kamokarshi Japam, 108 times or 1008 times. We do Kamokarshi Japam. Kamokarshit Manyurakarshit Namo Namaha. Then we offer ahutis in the homam after the during the Avaniyavattam ceremonies. There is we perform a homam. There the mantra we chant Kamo Karshit Kamak Karoti Naham Karomi Kamak Karta Naham Karta Kamak Karayita Naham Karayita Yeshete Kamak Kamaya Swaha. This mantra we say and offer ahuti to the fire to take it to the devatas so that please Kama and Krodha, in fact if Kama leaves it is enough, Krodha will also leave. They are a pair, Kama Krodha. So we offer one ahuti to Kama in the hope that it should leave us somehow. Then of course we offer one ahuti to Krodha also. Manyura Karshit, Manyuhu means Krodha. Manyura Karshit Namo Namaha. Manyu Akarshit. Manyuk Karoti Naham Karomi. Manyur Karta Naham Karta. Manyuk Karayita Naham Karayita. Yeshete Manyuk Manyave Swaha. All these are all Prayaschitta Ahutis. Whatever wrong I have done, whatever adharma I have done, oh Bhagavan, it is because of my Kama and my Krodha. I have not done it. You just see how, even in the Shastra, I am differentiating myself from the Kama and Krodha. Distancing myself. They are all Prayaschitta Ahutis offered during the annual Upakarma Homa. So our Shastra throughout recognizes the role of Kama and Krodha in our life. And because of these two villains only, all our problems, all our grief, everything, sorrows, unhappiness are all there because of this Kama and Krodha. And that is why throughout the Gita, Krishna will always talk about this Kama, Krodha, Raga, Dvesha, etc. Therefore, these two are responsible for blunting my discriminative power, and which he explains further in the 39th verse. We will read that verse. Avritam jnanametena jnanino nitya vairina kama rupena kaunteya dushpurena nalena cha. Anvaya is, He Kaunteya, Jnanam Avritam Etena Kamarupena Dushpurena Analena Cha Nitya Vairina Jnaninaha. He Kaunteya, O Arjuna, Jnanam. Jnanam can be taken as knowledge or discriminative power also we can take. Avritam is covered. Etena, by this. By what? Kama Rupena, which is in the form of desire. Dushpurena analena cha, which is like the insatiable fire, Nitya Vairina, and which is permanent enemy, Jnaninaha, of the wise or knowledgeable people, can say. People know, but we can actually, we will see about Jnaninaha a little later in our explanation. So here, Krishna says, "Oh Arjuna, this knowledge, this discriminative power is covered by this, which is in the form of desire, which is like the insatiable fire, and which is the permanent enemy of the wise." So just see the last three slokas, In the 37th sloka, Krishna said that kama, desire, and krodha, anger, is insatiable and sinful and is an enemy. In the 38th sloka, he further said that an intellect which has the discriminative power, the Viveka Shakti, when it gets clouded by this enemy, gets covered or wielded by this enemy, you remember that, the yatha tena idam avritam. It becomes an eternal enemy, especially for jnanis who are in the process of not only jnanis. Here what I wanted to explain. Here when it said jnaninaha, even though the plain reading is jnanis, we can apply that, extend that meaning to those who are in the process of reaching that exalted state also. Means the seekers also. For all of them, Krishna says this is an eternal enemy. Why eternal enemy? Because this karma will destroy the very intellect, the very thinking capacity, the very discriminative faculty. We must remember, whenever Krishna is referring to karma, he is also, we should include krodha also in that, because these are not two separate things. They are one and the same. Different versions of the same thing, like the two sides of the same coin, as I said. So whenever Krishna talks about karma, we can add krodha also. So when the karma is covers or wields, as it were, the discriminative power, the judging faculty is gone. And the nature of that karma, why the judging faculty goes, is described here. What is the type of that karma? He says, Dushpurena analena cha. And he compares that karma to a fire. Fire will destroy everything around it, including its own locus. Similarly, karma will destroy its very locus, the very mind in which it exists. Destroys the very mind. And therefore, it is called analena. Analaha means fire. This word is there in Tamil also, isn't it? You say anal parakkarve. But why fire is called analaha? See, many words, if you learn Sanskrit, you will know why a particular word exists in that meaning. In Sanskrit, every word has got a derivation. It has got a meaning. So there is a word called alam. Alam means satisfaction, contentment, tripti. Anala means that which is never satisfied, that which can never be propitiated. Like the fire. The more you offer oblations to the fire, the more it grows. It never says enough. Therefore, by offering oblations, you can never remove the fire. On the other hand, the fire will only increase by feeding it. Similarly, when you fulfill your desire, You are not removing the desire. In fact, you are nourishing the desire, feeding the desire. And whenever we feed something, it grows, isn't it? Therefore, once we fulfill a desire, it grows further and keeps on growing. It's like a fire. The more fuel you add, the more strongly it will burn. And like, homam also we have seen, the more ghee we pour or more other material we offer, the fire goes on expanding. Fire is insatiable. It can never be satisfied. Never satisfied, never satiated. That is why it is called analaha. Na vidyate alam yasya saha analaha. So desire is here compared to fire analaha. So to understand how one desire fulfilled leads to another desire and another, we have already seen Nisvo Vashti Shatam Shati Sloka last class. When you get 100 rupees, you target 1,000. Once you get 1,000, you target 10,000, etc. In fact, Swami Paramathananda narrates one nice anecdote. Someone came to him and showed a brand new watch and told Swamiji that he had gone to some fair or some exhibition or something. And there was a lucky dip game. And in that game, the first prize was a watch. So this man bought a ticket and won the first prize and got the watch. And he had come to Swamiji to show the watch. Swamiji was very happy. He congratulated him. But surprisingly, the person said to Swamiji, Swamiji, that's all fine, but I am not very happy about winning this watch. He says, why? What happened? You have got a watch free of cost. He says, no, the next day, in the lucky dip, they offered a two-wheeler as the first prize. Swamiji says, even though this fellow had got a free watch, he was not happy because he did not get the two-wheeler. He was talking as though he had lost the two-wheeler. First of all, he did not go to the fair the next day. So he could not have entered the lucky dip contest. But he imagines that had he gone, he would have won the first prize and would have got the two-wheeler. Therefore, he is unhappy that he had lost the non-existent two-wheeler and he is crying. And the tragedy is that in that crying, he is not able to enjoy the free watch that he has got. See the irony. This is called kamaha. That is what we do the whole life. We don't appreciate what we have with us. Enjoy that. Thank God for that. Instead, we keep chasing like a mirage, And whatever we have got, we don't enjoy that also. We don't feel happy about that also. Never satisfied. Anala buddhi. Therefore, he says, dushpurena, that which can never be satiated or satisfied. And what kind of fire it is? Kama rupena, the fire which is in the form of an inordinate desire, and which is jnaninaha nitya vairina, which desire is an eternal enemy of the wise persons. And as I said, here we can extend the meaning of jnaninaha to scriptural students, those who are in the spiritual path, the seekers. So we must understand Krishna's message here. Because when we read these slokas together, we will find why Krishna is repeating the same idea again and again. But there are subtle differences. In the previous shloka, he said, Kamaha and Krodha iha vairinam. Desire and anger is an enemy in this life. Iha means in this life. This was a general statement which is applicable to all. But in this shloka, he makes a specific mention of Jnaninaha and he says Nitya Vairinaha. Jnanam Avritam Jnaninaha Nitya Vairina. He says this clouding of the intellect, this wheeling of the discriminative faculty is an eternal enemy of a wise person. And which, as I said, includes a scriptural student who is in the spiritual path. Therefore, when we come to this shloka, Krishna is showing a red flag for a student who is studying the scriptures like Gita for spiritual advancement, who has undertaken this spiritual journey with moksha as the end. So Krishna is highlighting, hey spiritual students, hey mumukshus, don't look at others and say that they are also doing all these things, so I will also do. What is the difference? Krishna is pointing out here, my dear spiritual students, this desire is a greater enemy for you. Other people do not look down upon their desires. They do not consider it as a weakness at all. They do not consider it as a minus point at all. Therefore, they go on fulfilling their desires, irrespective of the consequences they will eventually face. They do not have any guilt complex or any such problem. They have not studied Gita also to know all these things, isn't it? But if I am a serious and committed seeker, the problem is I am going to start feeling guilty whenever I have a desire. For example, we saw diabetes as a good example actually. Suppose a person has got sugar problem, but he does not know that he has got a sugar problem. He is not informed or he has not tested for sugar. So he doesn't know. Therefore, what he does, he goes on fulfilling his desire to eat all kinds of sweets, jalebi, laddu, gulab jamun, everything, without any guilt or any complex or restraint. Later one fine day, he discovers that his blood sugar level has shot up considerably. It is then that he realizes that he had been diabetic. And whatever consequences he has to suffer because of all that fulfilling the desires, he will have to suffer. But if a person knows that eating all the sweet without any restraint will lead to sugar problems, which will lead to other health problems, he will be careful in his eating habits. So once you have chosen the spiritual path, your attitude towards desires should be like that of a person who has discovered that he is diabetic. Let others go on with their life with kama, krodha, etc. But you as a seeker, consider them as eternal enemies and keep them away at a safe distance. So, yaninaha nitya vairina. Because when you come to Vedanta for a spiritual student, the most important wealth is discriminative power. The first part of his life is karma yoga, in which he has to use the discrimination to find out what is dharma, what is adharma. Therefore, the first stage of his spiritual life spiritual journey involves dharma, adharma, viveka. For that, one needs buddhi with viveka shakti. And once he has crossed the karma yoga stage, he comes to jnana yoga stage. There also he has to use the discriminative power for satya, mithya, viveka, atma, anatma, viveka. He has to know what is real and what is unreal, or what appears to be real but actually unreal, what appears to exist but actually, in fact, it doesn't exist. Therefore, the first stage of spirituality requires discrimination between dharma and adharma. And in the final stage of spirituality, also one needs discrimination between real and unreal, atma, anatma, satyam, mithya, etc. Therefore, discrimination is required in each stage of spiritual life. Throughout spiritual life, viveka is important. And therefore, for people like us who are seekers, spiritual seekers, the most important wealth is this viveka shakti, this discrimination. Local wealth, material wealth may be there, may not be there. Any other sampat we may have or not have, but viveka sampat, the sadhana chatushtiya sampat, the viveka dhanam is the most important. We have to be always on guard lest karma rob away this wealth of discrimination. The karma is a great robber, or worse, a greater worse robber, because he robs away the vivek shakti. Therefore, one should be very, very careful and guarded. And in the next sloka, Krishna further explained the reasons for the desire to arise. See how in these slokas, in the last slokas of this chapter, Krishna is beautifully bringing in the importance of sadhana chatushtaya sampatti for a spiritual seeker. He is giving tips to Arjuna. Arjuna, this is what you have to follow. This is the route you have to follow. If you have to reach that 18th chapter. So in the next sloka, Krishna further explained the reasons for this desire to arise. He analyzes, in-depth analysis Krishna is doing. You read the sloka. Indriyani mano buddhihi asyadhishtana mujyate etair vimohayatyesha jnanamavritya dehinam. This is the 40th sloka. Anvaya is Indriyani manaha buddhihi uchyate asya adhishthanam avritya jnanam etaihi yeshaha vimohayati dehinam. Indriyani, the sense organs, manaha, the mind, buddhihi, and the intellect, uchyate, are said to be asya adhishthanam, the foundation or base of this desire. Avritya jnanam, wheeling the knowledge, etaihi, by these, yeshaha vimohayati, this desire deludes dehinam, the individual. The sense organs, the mind, and the intellect are said to be the foundation or the base of this desire. Wheeling the knowledge by these, this desire deludes the individual. So, I am a spiritual seeker, a mumukshu or a jigyasu. And Krishna has pointed out that kama is a shatru, an enemy. So now there is a war. A cold war going on between me and my enemy. Enemy is kama. How to win this war? That is what Krishna is discussing. Let us briefly understand what happens in a war between two countries. I think Narayananji will know more about it. He has been in the Navy. In any war, the aim is to defeat the enemy. isn't it? In earlier days, there used to be wars between neighboring countries. So you have to just cross the border and fight the enemy. But in modern times, one need not be neighbors. There can be war between two countries separated by a great distance. We have seen such wars, in example, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. So many examples are there. So when such long distance wars are fought, the attacking country requires a base around the enemy territory to store weapons, to fuel aeroplanes, supply ration, etc. for the army. Without such a base, they cannot support their army. So a nourishing base near the enemy is required for victory. Now, if I have to win over the enemy, what I have to do? I have to find out such bases of the enemy and destroy them. Therefore, Krishna asks the question, for Kama to attack me, what are the bases? If you handle those bases, the Kama war can be won effectively. And Krishna says that there are three bases from which desires get nourishment. First, desire gets generated as a thought, and later it gets nourished by three bases. What are they? Number one, Indriyani. The five sense organs are the first one, because they alone introduce the sense object to me. They alone are responsible for bringing the enemy into my territory and create a temptation in me. And that's why, they present this product advertisement constantly over the media, television, everything, newspaper. These days, even social media advertisements have come, Facebook and all, everywhere advertisement. Why? To create a temptation. They constantly present sense objects which target our five sense organs of Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, Desire. In fact, some apparel company and all, I've seen one advertisement. Sometimes I used to wonder, that coat that person is wearing. One nice looking lady is actually, sort of feeling the texture of that material. I'd say it is so smooth. So even sparsha, they show is an object. Oh, it's a smooth. Or even the face, shaving cream and all that, so smooth. All that to create a temptation, create a desire. And for that, they will announce sale, rebates, buy one, get one free, etc. They keep on bombarding with all these enticements. Eventually, the sense organs will succumb to the desire. That is the first stage. Then what is the next nourishing base? Manaha. The advertisement itself may last only for a few seconds. But when the sense organs succumb to the temptation, the sense object is pushed into your mind. Then the mind takes over. And the mind has got great recording power and retrieving power. It will remember all the details of the object of temptation, which shop, in which street it is available, etc., what is the price, etc. All these things will be remembered, whether the mind remembers the Gita teaching or not, whether mind remembers all dharma, adharma or not, it will remember all these desired sense objects. And this creates a strong samskara or vasana. We have already seen this process in the second chapter, isn't it? Dhyayate vishayan pumsaha sankasteshu bhajayate Sangat sanjayate kamah, kamat krodho bijayate. Again, Krishna talks about the same thing. It's a relay race. Sense organs do the first job and hands over the baton to the mind. The mind says, now leave it to me, I will take care of the rest. And what does the mind do? We will see in the next class. It's time. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidham Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you very much. Hari Om.
Thank you, Guruji.
Namaskaram, Guruji.
Thank you, Guruji.
Namaskaram.
Thank you very much,
Guruji.
Guruji.
Thank you.
Namaskaram. Our strong desire only should be to keep attending the classes.
Yes, that desire should be there. See, desire, as such, I have already told, is not bad. What we must guard against is desire which we are not able to resist. That is something, we have to understand. Because this is actually, I have personally experienced many times, Earlier and all, the mind dwells on those desires, which the intellect is saying it is not correct. But the mind keeps on dwelling on that. And now when I am, more, I would call it matured spiritually, I can clearly see that happening, So the mind immediately takes, or the intellect takes over and says, dismiss this desire immediately. Don't dwell upon it. What the intellect does, it will bring something else in its place because it knows the mind's weakness. So if there is a
Absolutely.
desire for doing a wrong thing, the intellect, if that Viveka Shakti is there, it will watch the mind and immediately replace that adharmic desire with a dharmic desire. If not, nothing else, just to say Sri Rama Jayam or Om Namah Shivaya or something, that thought, it will take the mind away from that thought of adharmic desire.
But desire can also be...
If you are very careful, you can watch your mind function like that and intellect function like that.
So can desire also be contagious? One person's desire will influence...
It's contagious only that. Because it is contagious, only they show the advertisements. They spread like a virus, through advertisements. They will show Kapil Dev has done this and Amitabh Bachchan has bought this. So you feel you are all Amitabh Bachchans in this world, you should also do it. Right from Pan Parag, Gupta, everything, that's how they use.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It will spread like wildfire.
It will spread like wildfire. That's why
it will spread like wildfire.
Last few slokas, their desire is always compared to fire in one form or the other. You can just see,
Absolutely, yes.
Everywhere Krishna himself is saying it's a wildfire. It started with that. It's a fire. No, you can't control this fire. So you have to work extra hard to control it. Rather. Control means basically not
Absolutely.
put it down, but manage it rather. That's
but strong desire can also be destructive, ultimately.
It can be. It will always be destructive. The stronger the desire, the more will be your grief when the desire is not fulfilled. Isn't it? People are led to suicides because of that, take their own life. Because of that strong desire. Somebody wants to marry somebody, very so strong desire, that when that person is not able to do that, he goes and takes his life.
Absolutely.
So desire is normally we don't have such, very strong desires, right? But there are people who are driven by very strong desires, especially when you come to spirituality. It is a Nitya Vairina. It's a very big enemy. It will take you away and destroy you means spiritually destroy you. Not that it is going to destroy you physically.
True. Absolutely.
Spiritually, it will destroy you. That's what the warning is. Okay.
Thank you very much, Guruji. Namaskaram.
Yes, Satya Sarupan, tell me.
Yeah, Namaste, Guruji. Today, I actually happened to watch this movie called Oppenheimer.
Yeah, which is based on the person who basically invented the nuclear bomb. So, he actually was a scholar in Sanskrit, and he was so much into Bhagavad Gita. So it is a situation which is very similar to Arjuna, where Arjuna is very confused and he does not want to actually go to the battlefield. He knows he himself can actually kill so many people out there, but he does not want to ruin their lives, to want to kill. And similarly, Oppenheimer is one of those scientists who know that he can build an atom bomb, but he does not want the country to use it in a wrong way. And at a point, he actually reads the Bhagavad Gita, and he understands that, Krishna says, I think it's the verse called Karmanyevadikaraste Mahapaleshu Karmani. So there he understands that it is his duty to do whatever the government is asking him to do, but whatever the result of his actions are, that's not going to affect him. But even though even though he was not the one who dropped the bomb, he is just the creator of it. It still, you know uh, basically it ruins his, basically makes him guilty throughout his life, and he battles through it. And at the end, I think he also mentions that it is Bhagavad Gita which helped him to kind of come out of the
Guilt
whole
feeling.
guilt feeling.
That is true. I mean, many times we are forced by circumstances to do a certain thing. But if it has been done with the attitude of karmanevadikaraste, then it's fine.
Yeah.
The question is whether you are justifying later or at the time of doing you did with that attitude, with the
Right,
karma yoga attitude is what is the question.
right. So when
Like
he
that,
built.
in no action is right or wrong. Like Arjuna also. In fact, Krishna tells your job is to kill, right?
Right,
So if there is a scientist, he has to do something, to invent something. To the scientist's aim is to make life easier, simpler, more healthier for the people. Now,
right,
if it that turns out to be something, I mean, just even take the case of the coronavirus, right?
right,
I mean, without going into all the politics of it, suppose let us say that there is a scientist who feel that there is a threat of such a deadly virus attacking the human being. So he is doing an experiment in order to create a vaccine for that virus.
right,
So in the process, an accident takes place, and whatever that virus is been able to develop, it spreads all over the place.
oh,
Now he never started with that intention that he is going to kill the humanity by this, right?
right,
So if his attitude was right, then there is no problem. You will not feel guilty at all about it. Right?
right,
So the idea is whenever we do anything, even adharmic act, sometimes we may be forced to do. Question is, will we have to ask ourselves, by doing this, will I ever feel guilty about it later?
right,
If I am fully justified, because even we have seen, in Ramayana, Rama tells a lie.
oh, oh, okay,
Huh? In fact, when Rama is being sent to the forest, Dasharatha has already told because of Kaikeyi, you have to go to forest and all. And when the actual event is taking place, Dasharatha is forlorn. He is standing at the door of the palace and crying, Rama, please don't go, please don't go, please don't go. All people in Ayodhya are all shouting, don't go, don't go, don't go. Right?
right,
Then the charioteer who is driving the chariot, he is confused because he is in the employment of Dasharatha.
right.
Whatever Dasharatha says, he has to
He has
obey.
to obey. Right.
But Dasharatha's first order was to take Rama to this thing.
Right,
He is now started doing. Now Dasharatha is telling the charioteer, don't drive the chariot, which he has heard. Right? Now he asked Rama that, after Rama says nothing doing, because there is a dharma issue involved here, you take me to this, right? Because
right,
Dasharatha, my father, is becoming unnecessarily emotional.
right,
That's why he is doing all this, right?
right,
So now the charioteer is in a dilemma whether he should obey the first order or the second order of Dasharatha. So then he asks Rama, okay, I will take you, but when I come back, Dasharatha is certainly going to punish me, because he will ask me that I told you not to drive the chariot, but you still drove the chariot and went
Yeah.
away. Rama tells him, you tell Dasharatha that in all that shouting and all by people, I did not hear what you said. So Rama is advising that fellow to do a adharmic activity. But then the question is, was that adharmic activity? So whenever we are evaluating an adharmic activity, we should evaluate it in the background of a larger dharmic activity in which it may be sitting.
Right, right.
We should not isolately, in isolated manner, analyze these kind of things. This is adharma, this is dharma. If there is a greater dharma to be served by doing one adharmic activity, then Shastra permits that. Similarly,
Right.
there is a case of even Yudhishthira
Okay.
in the Mahabharata.
Okay.
Ashwatthama case, right? A story of Ashwatthama. Because there was an elephant called Ashwatthama, which Krishna kills.
Right.
Then he tells Yudhishthira, you shout that Ashwatthama is killed.
Right.
So I say, how can he say Ashwatthama? Ashwatthama is Drona's son, Dronacharya's son.
Yeah.
I won't say a lie and all that. So Krishna says that, okay, you do one thing, you say Ashwatthama, the elephant is killed. Like that you say. So what he does, Yudhishthira says, okay, that is fine, because the Ashwatthama elephant is killed, that is not this thing, wrong. So he says Ashwatthama is killed. Then he says the elephant. When he says the elephant, Krishna blows his conch very, this thing, so that nobody hears the word elephant.
Elephant. Okay.
Dronacharya hears only Ashwatthama is killed, and he puts down his arms. Now that's that dharmic or adharmic. Krishna himself has done that.
Right.
So Krishna's justification is that for winning a dharma yuddha, because the broader canvas is dharma,
Dharma.
or
Right.
establishing dharma. In that, if you are required to do, forced to do some adharmas here and there, then it is acceptable by Shastra. But you should be able to demonstrate it. You should not say, oh, there is a bigger purpose, that's why I am doing. Like all the politicians do. We are corrupt because we want to serve the people. There is no serving the people, there's only serving their own families.
Yeah, correct.
That you can't justify rather. So like that, Oppenheimer also, maybe, I have not seen the movie. It's quite possible that he later on realized that what he did was wrong, but then thanks to Bhagavad Gita, he could get out of the guilt feeling.
Right, Guruji. So, when he developed the atom bomb, it was his intention that just to show other nations that if you attack us, we have nuclear bombs, we will detonate. But then he did not expect the US to actually go and deploy the bombs there. And there it was out of his control that the government has taken over, so he cannot do anything from his perspective.
Very true.
But he took the blame for all the things that happened because he's a creator of that.
Yeah.
And he basically taught the world how to destroy itself. So he lived with that title till he died, and even beyond his death. So I think that's where Bhagavad Gita came in and helped him a lot.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you, Guruji.
Any other question? Comments? Nobody? Okay.
Thank you.
Close the session.
Thank you. Very nice.
Thank you.
Hari Om. Thank
Hari
you.
Om.
Hari Om,
Hari
Guruji.
Om.
Thank you, Guruji. Hari Om.
Hari Om Guruji, धन्यवाद.
Thank you, Guruji. Hari Om.